Hi friends, welcome to Vaibhava English Academy. Today let us look at a very meaningful poem, An Old Woman, written by Arun Kolatkar. Arun Kolatkar was born in 1932 and he died in 2004. Arun Kolatkar is a bilingual poet from Maharashtra. Now, the next point, please remember, it might be useful for your UGC NET and all. Arun Kolatkar described their nine-room house as a house of cards. So this might be a question, please keep in mind. Arun Kolatkar also worked as a graphic designer and he worked for the advertising agency. He won the prestigious CAG award for advertising 6 times and was admitted into CAG Hall of Fame. Coming to his work, his oeuvre, Arun Kolatkar greatly influenced Marathi writers. His Marathi poems display the nature of European avant-garde trends like surrealism, expressionism, and beat generation. His poetry has dark humor and it is radical in nature. His first English book, Jejuri, was published in 1976. Jejuri is a collection of 31 poems and it has won the Commonwealth Poetry Prize. Coming to his next work, Marathi work, Bijki Van, it was published in 2005 and this received Sahitya Academy Award in Marathi language. Kala Ghoda poems and Sarpastra was published in 2004. His collected poems edited by Arvind Krishna Mehrotra was published posthumously in 2010 in Britain. Now coming to the poem. Before reading the poem, this is about an old woman. The poet meets the old woman in a temple and it is an Indian scenario. This place, Jejuri, is in Maharashtra and as it is very common, in India we see lots of beggars sitting in front of holy shrines and they expect the pilgrims to offer them some offerings. So they usually, it is commonly seen that the beggars pester them, and unless and until the pilgrim gives the money, they won't leave you. So Arun Kolatkar is describing such a scenario, but out of this commonplace incident, he gets a message. Okay. Now, before entering the poem, let us read about Horseshoe Shrine in Jejuri. There is a reference to the legend that Khandoba is the incarnation of Lord Shiva. Khandoba carried his wife Bani from her father's house on a blue horse. The horse leapt across the hill and hit the ground so hard that it created a horseshoe shaped depression on the rock. Okay, and in order to show this horseshoe shrine, this old woman is taking the poet. Now, looking at the images, the first image is the picture of Lord Khandoba and goddess Banai. Khandoba is the incarnation of Lord Shiva and he is killing the two demons. So that is shown. The second picture is the aerial view of Khandoba temple in Jejuri. And the third picture is the Shivalinga in Khandoba temple. And the fourth picture is the front view of Khandoba temple. Okay, this is just for information. When we are reading a poetry, it is wonderful to know about the places and the occasion where the poem or the story happened so that it remains fresh in our minds. Moving on to the poem. An old woman grabs hold of your sleeve and tags along. She wants a 50 paisa coin. She says she will take you to the horseshoe shrine. You have seen it already. She hobbles along anyway and tightens her grip on your shirt. The poet uh, quintessentially pen pictures an old woman. There is an old woman and she grabs a hold of your sleeve. She is just pulling your sleeve and tags along. She comes along with you. What she wants? She wants a 50 paisa coin because she is one of the beggars over there. And she says she will take you to the horseshoe shrine. So she does not want free money, but then she is ready to offer some services. So what is that? That is to show the horseshoe shrine. The poet says that the poet has seen it already, but then she comes along and tightens her grip on your shirt. And she wants the money. Without the money, she won't leave the poet. So that is what is pictured. Moving on. She won't let you go. You know how old women are. They stick to you like a burr. You turn around and face her with an air of finality. You want to end the farce. When you hear her say, "What else can an old woman do on the hills as wretched as these?" So here what happens? The beggar, the old woman, doesn't let go of the poet. And the poet speaks to the reader. He says, "You know how old women are." Yes. And then what happens? They are like sticking like dirt. So the dirt won't let go of your dress easily, right? Similarly, these beggars also won't let go of you until and unless you pay the money. You turn around and face her with an air of finality. The poet is very angry, and then he is just angrily looking at her and telling, "This is it." But what happens? You want to end the farce. Farce means comedy. So the pilgrim is there, poet, and an old beggar woman is just pestering him, and he just looks at her and tells that, "Okay, this is the end of comedy, now leave me alone." What happens? And she says, when you hear her say, "What else can an old woman do on hills as wretched as these?" She says that what else, what job she could do? She could only do this. You look right at the sky, clear through the bullet holes she has for her eyes. And as soon as you look on, that the cracks that begin around her eyes spread beyond her skin, and the hills crack, the temples crack, and the sky falls. So what happens? She's asking, "What can an old woman do?" And suddenly the poet is getting a realization. He thinks as if he is looking through the eyes of the woman, and those eyes stands for the bullet holes. And when you look at her eyes, you when the poet looks at her eyes and he sees the determination of that woman who is not deterred by any of the difficulties, he feels very small. He imagines, just like we have seen in video games and all. What happens? Through the bullet holes, the entire picture cracks and falls. The poet thinks that the hills crack, the temples crack, the sky falls. So what happens here is, he understands that that woman, the pestering old woman, that beggar, is very strong and determined to to make her destiny. Whereas the poet is very, he when he compares his determination or his willpower to the woman's, the old woman's, he understands that he is very insignificant. With a plate glass clatter around the shatterproof crone who stands alone, and you are reduced to so much small change in her hand. The poet understands that in spite of all these difficulties, that woman has the integrity, the strength of mind, whereas the poet doesn't have. And what happens? The pilgrim or the poet who was consumed by self importance understands his insignificance, and he becomes small, 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 and imagines himself smaller than 50 paisa coin in her hand. So he understands that in spite of being a beggar woman, in spite of being uh, an old woman, that person is much more significant than him. The poet tries to portray the true picture of society and life uh, surrounding the place of Khandoba temple in Jejuri through the story of an old woman. The old woman tries to earn 50 paisa from the pilgrims by taking advantage of their blind religious faith. If anyone is reluctant to offer money, she tries to offer some service by showing them places like Horseshoe Shrine and wants to earn that money as a reward for the service. In common Indian scenario, where pilgrims are pestered by beggars in temple, is a very common sight. Initially, the poet is unsympathetic, but a sudden change occurs in his inner mind, and he begins to feel sympathy towards her. He realizes that she is adamant and shatterproof, just like the culture of her land. She lives with whatever is offered to her. This perception shatters him, and he is reduced to nothing in front of her. He cannot take his failure in this wide sense. The poet fails to connect to his culture. When he understands that, just like Indian culture, she is shatterproof. That time he realizes that she is much greater than him. Okay, so that is it for now, friends. If you like the lecture, please share it with your friends. Thank you so much.